Welcome back to another episode of Didi Got a Podcast. I appreciate you all for tuning in. I'm your host, Didi, and we are back with another live. If this is your first time here, I appreciate you all for tuning in. Please hit the like button on your way in. Please hit the like button on your way in. Please hit the like button on your way in. Please check out the information in the banner in the bottom of the screen as you can see it going across here. We're trying to get to 8,000 likes. And if you're interested in merchandise or access to extended videos, videos you cannot find here on YouTube, then please check out the Patreon. Links are in the description. In today's video, we're going to be discussing the one and only Officer Tatum, who have discussed several times before. Once again, if this is your first time here, just so we are not confused, and so I can clarify for anyone who may be wondering, I am apolitical. All right. I do have more conservative values than anything else, as I believe that as a follower of Christ, if you're not trying to conserve the Bible, if you're not trying to conserve what it is that Jesus Christ taught when he was here on earth, then what are you doing? What are we trying to progress from? Right. That is my perspective. However, I do not consider myself a quote unquote conservative or a Republican in the political sphere. I am apolitical. But when I did run in the quote unquote liberal world, or that is to say, when I was in corporate America and I was surrounded by a lot of people who were in corporate America, I realized more and more that I was not liberal. I did not agree with, especially over the past 3 to 4 years, things became out of control. It's one thing to say that systemic racism this, or white people this, or historically white people this and that, and this is the history, and this is why we have poor communities and redlining and marginalized groups. You can use those terms, but when that's all we ever talk about, and we never talk about personal responsibility, we never encourage people to stop having kids out of wedlock. We stop encouraging. We don't ever talk about what we can do to encourage people to stop committing crimes, right? Even when they have access to getting a job. That is when it started to turn me off. And I would eventually come across people like Candace Owens, Matt Walsh, Ben Shapiro, Officer Tatum. We know all the names, people from the Daily Wire, and the list goes on, PragerU. And that was new for me. It was different for me. And I was very skeptical. And I was like, I felt a bit guilty at first, finding myself agreeing with Officer Tatum, agreeing with Candace Owens, agreeing with Matt Walsh, agreeing with Ben Shapiro, agreeing with these people, Steven Crowder and these folks, about a plethora of different things. And I'm like, well, if they're right on a bevy of different topics, but I'm a black person, like I'm not supposed to like what they're saying. Like they're racist. They don't like me. They don't like my people. And then I began to mature and I began to think for myself and do my own research. And I realized that I had been brainwashed, that I was not thinking my own thoughts, but I was thinking what someone else told me to think. And so much like how they tell you to build your own relationship with the Most High, I think we should apply that everywhere within our life, including this as well. Officer Tatum, what I have realized with him and others as well, is he is one of the first ones on the conservative side that helped me realize, oh, there are pawns on both sides. When they say that these are two wings of the same bird, and they're just keeping us attacking each other and fighting each other, when both sides are corrupted, Officer Tatum was one of the best examples for me, because I started to notice something, and it wasn't just Officer Tatum, it was also Candace Owens, because I'm going to pick on those two in this video just for now, because I am a so-called Black American. And so therefore, just on a surface level, I immediately was drawn to them for obvious reasons. And I'm like, they're saying things that I've never heard a lot of Black people say, especially not in modern times. Let me hear what they have to say. And like I said, I started to like and agree with a lot of the things that they said. They said things that were common sense. They said things that made sense to me. And then I continued to listen to the both of them. And I slowly became annoyed with both Candace Owens, more so Officer Tatum. Candace has shown more balls than Officer Tatum by a landslide. But I became annoyed because I was like, I thought they were truth seekers. I thought that is what separated them. if they were liberals or if they were Democrats, then they're just standing on the same quote unquote Democratic plantation. But I thought they were different. This is how I knew they weren't necessarily truth tellers. Truth tellers don't only say what's true about one community, they say what's true about all communities. That is to say, to be a so-called black person, let alone a black conservative, and to say things like, stop complaining about systemic racism, correct the things that you can control. Stop doing X, Y, and Z, right? Stop doing drugs, stop robbing people, stop committing crimes, stop having children out of wedlock, right? All the things. And then they would show example after example of black people being racist, saying things and doing things against white people. But I noticed something. They never show videos of when other groups do it. That is to say, all the viral videos we can find of a black person saying or doing something that we can deem as racist towards white people or another group of people, saying things that are extremely harmful, right? Attacking a white person, things of that sort. But there are just as many, if not dozens of more videos across the internet, really hundreds of more videos across the internet of white people doing it to other groups of people. It's not to say that all white people are like this, but if you're about truth, share those videos too. Show how you're different, how you're objective. They never did that. Candace never did it. Officer Tatum never did. And I was like, so are you just here to be that person, to only share the truths, the uncomfortable truths about the black community? Have they limited your intelligence or your intellect to just talking about the black community? Have they told you that you're not allowed to talk about other communities? Why don't y'all talk about other communities too? I'm not saying stop talking about us and holding us accountable. I'm saying, why don't you talk about other communities? That's when I knew something was wrong. That's when I knew this is a business, right? And then eventually, like I said, Candace showed more balls. She would eventually start talking about Israelis and the Jewish community. And of course, Ben Shapiro them didn't like that. She stood 10 toes down. I have an immense amount of respect for her because she talked about those who must not be named, right? Like Lord Voldemort, he who must not be named. She started to talk about those who must not be named. Debating rabbis. I had so much respect for her for doing so. But even the way the Ben Shapiro thing was handled, I think it just spoke to the fact that it was clear that Candace had handlers at the Daily Wire and at PragerU, just like I believe Officer Tatum has handlers. And with that, we're going to transition over into Officer Tatum. Over the past few weeks, particularly the past couple of weeks, Officer Tatum has been going viral because of the Nolan Wells case. What did Officer Tatum decide to do? He decided to interview Nolan Wells as his friends. Got it. You say, well, yes, because he's trying to get to the truth. That was one of the oddest things ever. Why is that, Demetrius? Why is that, Didi? What makes that odd? He's trying to get to the truth. Ben Crump, the attorney for Nolan Wells, or Nolan Wells is his parents, Nolan Wells is his estate. Ben Crump is a race hustler, right? He's a grifter. He's an ambulance chaser, all the terms that they come up with. I agree with you. I also believe that Ben Crump is boule. We've already discussed in extensive detail what boule means and what their job is, which is to protect the elite class, which are the elite families who all happen to be white and white Jewish families. It's just a fact. Allegedly, right? It's a fact, allegedly. But two things can be true at the same time. Officer Tatum did something that was very strange to me. And I hope I'm able to convince at least one of you to see it the exact same way. Even if you already don't like him, you've noticed how he's been an unapologetic Zionist, how he's been handling the Charlie Kirk case. I get it. We're talking about something different today, though. Pretend that you don't dislike Officer Tatum or certain things about Officer Tatum. Allow me to introduce a different perspective for you. There's a kid in Mississippi that goes missing on July 4th. His body washes up on the shore of Horn Island in Mississippi 2 days later on July 6, 2026. It blows up. It's nationwide news. Officer Tatum decides to interview the majority white friends of Nolan Wells, who showed very little emotion during the interview, that being Nolan Wells is his friends. Never saw any tears from his main friend who's supposed to be his best friend. No tears. That's strange. He repeatedly said the phrase, "We were trying to save our boat." You never once hear anything about trying to save Nolan. Why am I mentioning this? If you're Officer Tatum, you have nothing to do with this situation. Why would you go out of your way to interview people who very well may be guilty, right? These people may have colluded to unalive Nolan Wells. We don't know. Nolan Wells could have gotten too intoxicated and something else could have happened to him that is totally innocent of anybody else's wrongdoing. I happen to believe otherwise, especially given that his friends didn't report him missing, right? They weren't concerned, despite having his cell phone. His parents had to call looking for him. All the 300, 400 other people on the island, on their boats, on the lake that day, nobody reported him missing, from my understanding. Why would you, if you're Officer Tatum, assume? Because he can lie and say, "I wasn't assuming that his friends were innocent." Yeah, you were. You sat down with them and gave them this softball, almost "let me give you a hug, I'm on your side" type of interview. That's weird energy. You don't know these people. Why do that? You know what that will look like. To make it even worse, let me prove my point. Earlier this year, Carmelo Anthony, a kid from Texas, was officially convicted, sentenced, I believe, 30 plus years for unaliving another high school kid, I believe by the name of Austin Metcalf. At no point during that entire investigation, case, trial, did Officer Tatum reach out to Carmelo Anthony's family and friends and sit them down to try to defend Carmelo Anthony and corroborate and support them during the interview. You never gave Nolan Wells as his friend any reason to believe that you didn't believe them, that you thought they were guilty, that you were suspicious of them. None. That's weird energy. You don't know them. You don't know them. What is this energy, bro? Officer Tatum is a plant, allegedly. Everything I say in this live is alleged. I've been saying this for the longest. These people are plants. They have an agenda, and they have what is it? They are given certain directions, right? They are given certain marching orders that they have to follow, right? And they're going to follow them because their handlers, their sponsors, their funders are what's most important to them, right? I'm mentioning that because I want you all to notice the timing of everything. It's not until the Nolan Wells case comes around. Officer Tatum is trending everywhere because of it. A lot of people like it. A lot of people dislike it. It's very distasteful what he's doing. And right around the time he's trending, he decides to go onto something that I'll be the first to admit. I said this a long time ago. I never thought that Officer Tatum, Officer Tantrum, Officer Tatum, what's some other good ones? I've heard some good nicknames, man. Officer, dang, what's the other one? Somebody came up with a good one the other day. But he decided to go on to Jubilee, which I'll be the first to admit. I said a long time ago, that is one person I never thought would go on to Jubilee. Matt Walsh is another one, because neither one of them are great debaters. I probably would have more so saw Matt Walsh going on, but it would have to be under like really, really strict guidelines. That is to say, obviously, as the person who sits in the middle of the circle on Jubilee, that person gets to decide what the prompt is that they're going to discuss or debate. However, with a person like Matt Walsh, it would have to be even more strict, because Matt Walsh is great at sitting behind a camera screen and reacting to videos. He's even better at dodging debates than he is at actual debates. If it's not a green-headed or a red-headed leftist who believes that men can be women, or that children should be able to biological men should be able to compete against women, or underage children should be able to change their gender, so to speak, right? Gender affirming care. If it's not people like that, he's not debating them. Matt Walsh is a coward. I've learned that over the past 3 years about him, right? Well, he decided to go on to Jubilee, and I don't want it to slip anyone's mind, and I don't want it to go unnoticed, the timing of it. Officer Tatum is about building his brand. It is about money. It is about clout. I know it's hard for some people to believe that, because he already has a massive platform. That's what it's about. How do I capitalize? Because as they say, there is no such thing as bad publicity. How do I capitalize off this attention I'm getting? The Nolan Wells case, I interviewed his friends. Now everybody's looking at me. Because remember, the Charlie Kirk case messed it up for a lot of people. It has the conservative side of that, the political sphere, if you will, the political aisle, in shambles. It feels like there's Candace Owens and then everybody else on the conservative side, right? Even Tucker Carlson is taking this very weird stance where he talks about it, then he doesn't. He's staying out of it. He's pretending he don't see these things about Erica. I've already given my opinions about Tucker Carlson. Very suspicious of him. His history, I think he's another plant. It doesn't matter if we like what he says or not. How did you get that platform? Well, he worked at Fox. Let's talk about Fox in another video. Why am I mentioning the Charlie Kirk case? Officer Tatum, did you know that the Daily Wire in the past, I believe, 3 years, has lost 80% of their YouTube views alone? We're not even talking about the Daily Wire subscriptions. Simply their YouTube views. 80% is crazy. Ben Shapiro himself has lost majority of his YouTube views. But it gets worse. In the past 10 months, the Daily Wire, of that 80%, a huge chunk of those drops in views came in the past 10, 11 months. What happened in the last year? Charlie Kirk did. That sounds like two things in one. Charlie Kirk did. I'm sure y'all can hear it. Allegedly. Officer Tatum was another one. He came on camera. He cried about what happened to Charlie Kirk to his audience, despite not shaming him for crying at all. But it was a bit weird because Officer Tatum has religiously stated that he would never cry if something happened to his children, because he would have to, and I quote, be the foundation, a strong foundation for his wife. This is what Officer Tatum has said. So he cannot be seen at no point in time crying. He immediately cried when everything happened with Charlie. He has also rejected, denied, and refused to acknowledge all of the inconsistencies, red flags, and lies that has come out since the investigation started September 10th, September the 11th, right? His views has dropped tremendously over the past 10, 11 months. That's a fact. Not until the Nolan Wells case happened. That's probably his biggest video in months. Definitely from a numbers perspective, I can't argue that. Maybe, maybe not. It's definitely up there, but it's definitely the most attention he's gotten in the past, I don't know what, year, easily. So it's not a coincidence that he decides to go on Jubilee, because he's trying to maximize. He's trying to capitalize on the attention that he's getting. And when I tell you this man was completely unprepared for this debate, remember, I'm more conservative leaning, right? The reason why I'm apolitical and I'm not Republican or Democrat, because not only do I believe that both sides are corrupt 100%, but I do believe that, and I think it's designed that way, because I believe that Republicans versus Democrats, it's Saturnian principles. I think all of it is rooted in Luciferianism. What do you mean by that, DD? I mean, when you look at the red and the blue, it's not a coincidence that we see red and blue consistently amongst gangs. I do believe that the Republicans and Democrats are both gangs. That's why you have the Crips and the Bloods, red and blue. Look at boxing. You got the red corner, you got the blue corner, right? When you look at, what else? Police lights. When you look at the sign for the NBA, what do you have? You have the logo in the middle, which is white. And on each side, what are the colors? Red, blue. Why? Because those are Saturnian principles. What do I mean by that? When you mix red and blue together, you get the royal color of the occult. What is that? Purple. But I'm digressing. We can get into that in another video. I've spoken about that extensively on Patreon. I digress so much right there. I forgot where I was going. Officer Tatum was so unprepared for this debate. Oh, yeah, that's where I was going. Remember, I'm more conservative leaning. And I think Officer Tatum made several accurate points. But he also sat there for 2 hours. So, of course, at some point, he's going to say something that's right, I would hope. He embarrassed himself. Most of the statistics that was presented to him, he ignored them. He didn't care. He pivoted. The amount of whataboutisms. If you ever needed proof that these people are prepped, some people are just better at performance. Some people are just more intellectual than the other, than the last, right? Officer Tatum isn't one of those people. He is not the best orator. He's just not. He feels like he is on the side of truth, so he doesn't have to be the best debater. He just has to state what's true and just keep repeating it. But what he failed to realize is that when you are in this setting like a Jubilee, and you're interacting with so many different strangers, and one of the first times I've ever seen in the Jubilee episode when people came with notes and was Googling things right there in front of Officer Tatum, it shook him. He immediately went to, well, what about this? Well, let's talk about this. No, bro. You have a prompt. You've made a statement. They're asking you to substantiate it. You can't do it. You're pivoting. And one of the best examples is this right here. As it's titled, One Black Cop versus 20 Black Liberals. And I don't know if it's just me, but the thumbnail to this video, I promise you, I feel like it changed like 10 times. I don't know what that's about. I'm going to show you all. This is at the very beginning. This is 2 minutes into a 2-hour video. So this is the very first prompt, first person to sit down to talk with Officer Tatum. And I want you all to listen to what, as we know, she's a regular. Don't agree with her in her politics either. I more so disagree with her than Tatum. But this guy right here just made a complete fool of himself. This is one of the best examples. And fortunately for us, where's the proof of that? He just said something. Where's the proof of that, though? Injecting money? What does that even mean, injecting? What did he do? Did he put money or quarters or dimes into a needle? And then he just injected it into buildings. Like, what does that mean? And where's the proof that he put this type of money to the communities? But I'm digressing. That's not even the purpose of me sharing this.
Which Barack Obama never did. Donald Trump.
You see what he did? He immediately went to Obama. Why is he not going to Biden? For reference, the previous 2 minutes, like the first minute of this video was the introduction, and then she just sat down. So they've discussed Obama in no term, no shape or form. Why did he mention Obama? Because he's comparing two men who are of different races, which that is to say, it's about race for him as well. Just as much as it is for the race-baiting leftists and Democrats, he's the same way. He's no different. Some people won't like this. I really don't care. I don't care about things like that. I think Trump is a pawn, right? I think just like all the presidents, I think Trump is just one of the most inarticulate pawns in the seat of the president that we've ever seen before. Has Trump done several things that I agree with? Like all of the executive orders he signed once he got into office, yes. But I also believe that there was a lot of those, excuse me, a lot of those things were a low-hanging fruit. That is to say, a lot of those things were easy fixes. And I believe they were easy fixes designed and placed put into place by Kamala Harris or Joe Biden so that it can make it look like there's a much more need. And I've talked about this on the channel before, for someone like Trump to come along and fix the issues that Biden and the Democrats caused over the past 4 years. When it was the design all along to set these things into place. Trump's going to come along and fix it. But the biggest issues in the country, Trump, just like the rest of these presidents, never actually get to those. But he's able to put a Band-Aid, or he's able to pamper people with the small fixes with the executive orders that he made. That were important. They were important, but they're nowhere in comparison to the deficit, the financial deficit in this country, the housing crisis in this country, right? And the list goes on. But I'm digressing. What I'm wanting to say here, though, is I don't care about petty posts on social media and how it affects how the black community feels about it. Who cares? Who cares? Let me make sure I say this as well before I play this video any further. It is very important for me to state this. The biggest issues in the black community, whether we want to agree that systemic racism is a real thing or not, how prominent it is, if it is real or not, individual racism, we can talk about those things. And I do believe that both exist to some extent. Here's what I will say. It is not at the top of the list of issues in the black community. It's just a fact. There are a bevy of other things that we need to fix in the so-called black community before we even get to racism and systemic racism. In other words, that is to say, there are several other things we can fix in our community, in our individual lives, that will improve our life substantially, right? Improve our lives substantially, even with the existence of individual racism and systemic racism. That's a fact. And when I say it's not at the top of the list, it's not in the top 15. Did you hear me? It's not in the top 15 issues in the black community. Right?
I'm not familiar with some video that he posted.
Well, I mean, you should be.
Let's talk about Democrat policy.
You should be.
Let's talk about Democrat policy.
What?
Bingo. The video just started. He's already started it. Right? He's already started it. No, let's not talk about these things I'm not familiar about that Trump has done that is very distasteful, very incongruent with the message that he's supposed to represent, right? Is very counterproductive to the progression of where we've come from in this country. No, let's not talk about any of those things, because if we got into the granularities, not only would my ignorance show, but I would have to defend the bad things that Trump has done. So instead of doing that, let's talk about Democrats. Yeah, that's what I want to talk about. That's my bread and butter. Let's go into that realm. Let's go into that stadium. That's where I thrive. If you start digging into the granularities of Republicans, shoot, I'm not going to be able to keep up with the things that they've done wrong, because I only brag about the good things that Republicans have done. I only look at the bad things that Democrats have done. That's how I make my money. So if we aren't talking about bad Democrats, good Republicans, I'm going to fail here. I can't do that. I can't be objective and talk about the issues with both sides. Who do I look like? A fair person? This man said in a trial. This is one of the most embarrassing performances I've ever seen of anyone, especially a Republican, a self-admitted Republican, to come on here. I will have to say that not Dave Smith. What's the guy? Is it Dave Rubin? What's the other guy's name? He was just on here like a few weeks ago. He's probably number one. The most embarrassing performance I've ever seen of anyone. This is in the top 5. He just wasn't prepared. He's going to have some great moments. He's going to spew some facts that he was able to regurgitate and memorize before he came on. But when you just start delving into just a conversation, a free-flowing conversation about laws and history in this country, he is extremely uneducated and ignorant. This man said in the court, no, brother, you're the person in the center. They're the ones challenging your statement. So part of when your statement is being challenged, you're going to have to substantiate or corroborate the claim that you've made, which is Trump and Republicans are better for the black community than Democrats. She's wanting to talk about Trump and Republicans. You're like, no, let's only talk about that last word in the sentence, Democrats. It's not how it works, bro. I'm up here having to defend liberals. Dude, let her finish. The problem is, I'm going to, spoiler alert, for those of you that have not watched this as of yet, the truth here, as you're about to see, Officer Tatum actually has no clue about this policy. He's never heard of it before. So he can't actually debate or talk about the details of it or the specifics of it. And so instead of actually dealing with what she's actually presenting to him, he's going to just keep deflecting and just talking it like very vaguely and very generally instead of dealing with what she's specifically saying to him. And you're about to see that here in just a moment.
Point of the disparate analysis report is to check to make sure.
It's called the disparate analysis report. Watch what he's about to call it, which tells you he has no idea what she's talking about.
The laws that we rid of that.
Great question. Why would anybody get rid of something, not just the black community? If there is a policy that's been set in place, right, and you're trying to, it has been designed to make, or I should say, if there have been certain laws passed in this country, and then there's a policy set in place that is designed to make sure that said laws do not, even if it's accidentally hurting or becoming a detriment to certain populations, why would you get rid of something like that? That's something that's called due diligence. Due diligence is always a good thing. Why would you get rid of due diligence? That's a great question. Why get rid of it? Maybe there's a good answer for that. Let's see what Officer Tatum says here.
Why do you think he got rid of it? According to
he doesn't answer, and she bailed him out the hook because, just saying it for what it is, she's a liberal and she's a woman. She's emotional. She was not able to see what he just did there. He doesn't know, and he understands that, of course, that's a stupid thing to get rid of. That makes no sense unless you don't care about making sure that negative effects don't happen in that community. Instead of him answering, she let him off the hook. He was able to completely dodge having to answer it, and he just put it back on her. So now they're going to talk about if Trump is racist or not. So this is, again, all the crazy things that have happened and we've heard in this world. Shoot, just in the last 6 months. The Charlie Kirk case. Details we've heard in the Charlie Kirk case are some of the craziest things I've ever heard in my life. We're not even talking about in the past 5 years. This man said, simply stating that President Trump, who has been a rage baiter, I didn't say race, I said rage baiter. One of the most inarticulate, one of the most childish and immature presidents we've ever had. It's just true. It doesn't matter if you like him or not. It's true. Name one president in history that was more immature than Donald Trump. Name one. Democrat or Republican. Name one. So you know that he is just being ridiculous with his statement. That's not what she said. Not that it only affects black people. She said it was designed to make sure that it does not, even if it's accidentally hurt or become a detriment to that targeted population, which in this case just happens to be the black community. The question she asked you was, why would Donald Trump get rid of something like that? Why would he get rid of a due diligence program? Again, maybe there's a good answer for it. Officer Tatum just doesn't know it. All right. So there's that. I didn't want to share too much of that. But what I did want to go to next is I wanted to talk a little bit about, let me see which one I want to go to first. So, for those of you that don't know, Officer Tatum has been going back and forth with famous comedian D.L. Hughley. I'm sure many people, especially in the so-called Black community, are well aware of who he is. D.L. Hughley was a part, I believe, of the Kings of Comedy tour. It's not really important. Anyways, D.L. Hughley has been very upset with the behavior of Officer Tatum. This isn't the first time that they've went back and forth before. For the record, not a huge fan of D.L. Hughley outside of comedy. I do believe that he's funny, but outside of comedy, not the biggest fan of him, especially his politics. I do believe that D.L. Hughley is a Luciferian, allegedly. He is a part of Omega Psi Phi, right? So let me see. Y'all know I'm still working on trying to be efficient with pulling these things up. Let's see if I can get this up here. So just for the record, not Officer Tatum, D.L. Hughley, and I've talked about him before on the channel, is Omega Psi Phi. And we have religiously talked on this channel about the D9 or the Divine Nine, which are non-fraternities, non-Black fraternities that were not even created by so-called Black folks, right? The originators, the people that were part of the think tank, so to speak, for those organizations worked in hand. They were handlers, so to speak, of the ones that started the D9 organizations. The job of the Boule, right? Those that come from these fraternities are to protect their bosses. I'm trying to get this pulled up here, and I've already shown this before, but for somebody who's new, here is the chart that I did not create, but this is important to keep in mind. Omega Psi Phi is the third one. As a reminder, this is the same organization that both Shaquille O'Neal and Stephen A. Smith are a part of. Right? You got the Rothschilds family, you got the Oppenheimer, you got the Warburg, you got the Rockefeller, and the list goes on. The Bilderberg. All right. So I want to state that for the record. I am not a big fan of this guy. I do believe that while he spewing race and Black people this and Black power and Black families and Black businesses, his interest is to protect the wealthy white class. And that's a fact. That's a fact. And if I have enough time, I will prove that in this video. I will get to that later in this video. He is no different. But again, he and Officer Tatum are two wings of the same bird. Why am I talking about D.L. Hughley? Because he had a back and forth with Officer Tatum, and I want to show you all something. He had a back and forth, and Officer Tatum hopped on Instagram. And I want to show you all what he said. All right. Here it is.
This is for D.L. Hughley and all them low vibration people that follow you.
Keep in mind that this man right here is a Christian. Keep in mind that Officer Tatum is a Christian. What does that mean? It does not mean that I expect him to be perfect. It does not mean that I expect him to be the most righteous man that's ever lived since Jesus Christ. No, that's not what I mean. You tell me when you watch this video, when you listen to the things that he's about to bring up, what he's about to say, you tell me if this is a man who is really a follower of Jesus Christ. If this is a man who really wants to be like Christ, who really routinely asks himself, what would Christ do? You tell me. Maybe it would make more sense if I show you all what D.L. Hughley said about him first. So D.L. Hughley on Officer Tatum. Let me see if I can find that video for you all really quick. Twitter's pretty good about that. So let me see if I can find it just really fast. Let's see. D.L. Hughley on Officer Tatum. Okay, here it is. So I'm not for sure exactly how this is going to showcase, but we'll at least get to hear some of what D.L. Hughley had to say about Officer Tatum. And then we'll see what Officer Tatum had to say as a response. Okay, let me just do this one.
Brandon Tatum is welcome in Mississippi when Ben Crump and Al Sharpton are not, for the exact same reason that Stephen A. Smith is welcome at ESPN and Ryan Clark are not.
I'm welcome in Mississippi by who? Benjamin Crump spent the week there and did a press conference there. Who said he wasn't welcome? Who told him he couldn't be there? The governor didn't. And
It's people having internet.
the state don't want people to read. The state don't want people to read. Mississippi, it's so racist in Mississippi, they don't want people to read out there.
Okay, that's something else. I want to. There's another clip. Here it is. Okay, bingo, perfect. I was about to say I'll just summarize it for you all, but I found it. So we are in luck. Here, I'm about to share the screen now, and we're going to get into this. All right, let's see what he had to say.
This is Brandon Tatum.
Y'all just see what unfunny ex-comedian D.L. Hughley just said about me. Posted a picture of me and my wife. To do what? To be a racist? You are the lamest dude in all of comedy.
What is more lame than calling yourself the job you used to have? You're not an officer anymore. You were a football player who failed at being a football player. You didn't make the team, so you became an officer. That wasn't working out, so you became an influencer. You talked about emotion. What is more emotional than this?
The word.
You cried for a white dude who the people didn't even think you worthy to speak at his funeral. You said you wouldn't cry for your son, but you cried for him. That's not emotion. You talked the way Benjamin Crump talks.
Just want to blame white folks. And so I go out there because I know that lame Al Sharpton and Mr. I can't read Benjamin Crump is just race hustling, y'all.
Like I said, two things can be true. I do believe that is Ben Crump's job, as I believe that it was Al Sharpton's, Jesse Jackson, and I broke this down, I believe, extensively in part of my P. Diddy series, and I also believe I broke this down to an extent. We touched on it just a little bit in my Martin Luther King documentary, which I believe is one of the best documentaries I've ever dropped on this channel in the 6 years I've been on YouTube, right? We've extensively talked about the boule. It's not a coincidence that all of these people are boule. All of them. Nobody finds that suspicious, of course, because these whistleblowers, right, who have taken oaths, that have broken the oaths and exposed what boule is really about, what these fraternities really are about behind the scenes, they've let the cat out the bag. Ben Crump does struggle with reading. I hate listening to him talk. I do. Do I believe that everything that Ben Crump does is evil? No. I believe that if somebody was unjustifiably had their life taken, but what you all have to understand is that usually when we see two high-level people going at it, usually their role is to just try to take us from one point in society to the next society, right? So a change in order, right? Change through chaos. That's typically how it works, but I'm digressing.
You talked about how those boys are innocent. You had proof. Now, I don't know whether they're innocent or not.
See, that's what I'm saying. Very strange thing for Officer Tatum to say. You don't know that. And it just so happened that most of his friends are white. What is it with you with that, bro? You didn't do that with Carmelo Anthony. How do you know for a fact that they're innocent? You don't want to wait to see and then speak up for them? That's very, very strange. Just like I've said with Roland Martin and Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton, it's like, do y'all always think black people are innocent? Do y'all always think black people are the victim? Because when y'all make all this noise when a black person died at the hands of a white person, or potentially have died at the hands of a white person in the Nolan Wells case, we don't know if that's true or not yet. Y'all are holding press conferences. But when 65 people die in a week and a half period in Chicago, you say nothing. And half the murders go unsolved. You say nothing. So is it really about black life or no? Is it really about black life that was unjustifiably killed or no? Or is it only when it's at the hands of a white person so that you can keep this division going because that's your job as boule? Which is it?
I don't know what happened there.
Where's the press conferences when all these gang wars are taking place in Chicago, St. Louis, LA, Detroit, Brooklyn, South Florida?
but I know one conversation with a failed football player and a social media influencer is not the predicate. You don't have any toxicology report. You don't have an autopsy report. You talked about black people acting a fool. Black people are right to be suspicious of a state that took 31 years and 3 trials to prosecute and find guilty the murder of Medgar Evers. Black.
Sir, I agree with that. That is one thing you have said so far I agree with. Absolutely.
People are right to be suspicious of a state that in 2005 found 215 black people that were dead and buried in a pauper's grave and nobody knew they were there.
Sir, you will be correct once again. That I agree with.
Black people are right to be suspicious of a state that just killed a 1-year-old boy and nobody's being brought to account about.
Bro, what's on your teeth? Are those diamonds? Bro, do you have diamonds on all of your teeth?
Black people are right to be suspicious of a state that has been poisoning black people with the water since the 1960s. Black people didn't look for this fight. They want justice. All they want is accountability. And if it's those boys, it should be that.
I agree.
Nobody has a predetermined notion. I don't know what happened. But if you're saying that that Al Sharpton and that Benjamin Crump are on one side, you're certainly on the other. You talk to them for 2 days and now all of a sudden you know if they're guilty. You know if they're innocent. You know that. Your name is, your moniker is Officer Tatum, not Detective Tatum. You didn't make your way to detective. You're an influencer who says what white people want you to say. And don't you find it?
He says what white conservatives want him to say. Right? And that's something I spoke to early on. I used to think that I was like, oh, they're about truth. And I was like, wait, they never say anything anytime they talk about the white community, it's only about white liberals. There's nothing wrong with the white conservative movement or the conservative movement when it comes to so-called white folks. It's not about finding a reason to talk about white folks or finding a reason to talk about black folks. It's about just stating the truth. What's wrong with society? Talk about everything. But I noticed that each side has their double standards. They never do it. I'm like, none of you people are truth tellers. I think all of you people were giving your platforms, and all of you all have sponsors and funders, right? Why is it the only time you speak about the white community as a group, you speak about white liberals? But whenever you talk about the so-called black community, it's black people, right? I mentioned Candace earlier, and Candace Owens has since admitted that she believes at one point in her life that I believe she said she had handlers and maybe Charlie Kirk had handlers as well. Well, what I find a bit suspicious about that is, listen, a lot of people are going to believe that. I'm not one of those people. I think Candace Owens is far too intelligent for her to believe for the first time that all of a sudden, what she believes for the first time now, that she had handlers and she didn't realize it at the time. Find it hard to believe. Part of the reason is because, think about it this way. If you're a Daily Wire and you're being objective and you're not just thinking about the fact that you like Candace or you like the things that she says, I tend to agree with Candace on most things she talks about, or a lot of things she talks about. But that doesn't remove my ability to think. I'm a logical person. At some point, even if you're a self-proclaimed conservative, you're about truth, you're about holding the black community accountable, which I support, by the way. At some point, you got to feel a little weird when you look around and you got Matt Walsh, you got Ben Shapiro, you have these other characters, Michael Knowles, right, and the crew. And all of their videos are either about Democrats, white liberals, or black people, or the black community. I don't mind anybody, let alone white conservatives, holding any of those three categories accountable. Absolutely, you should do it. I don't mind. Why is that mostly all you talk about? Matt Walsh, how many videos are you going to make about, here's the real story about Emmett Till? Huh? Why do you care so much about that? Here's the real truth about slavery that they don't teach you. It's like he's trying to, what's your agenda here, Matt Walsh? Because he'll tell you, I just want the truth out there. No, you don't. It's something about the black community you're obsessed with. I don't mind you speaking about it. Why don't you talk about everything in history? What is it with that? Right? So if I'm Candace over there, I'm looking like, you seem to have this unhealthy infatuation with dissecting every issue and flaw of the so-called Black community. Why aren't you doing it with your community too? Simon, and it's not just liberals, buddy. White liberals are not the only issues and corrupted individuals and deranged individuals in your community. Why aren't you making full-blown documentaries dedicated to white conservatives? Why aren't you doing that? I thought you were about objectivity and just truth. You're not. You have an agenda just like these liberals and these progressives have agendas. I've already admitted multiple times on this channel. I'm going to admit again. I know from working in corporate America, I know for a fact, I can't tell you all of them. I can't tell you that most of them do. I know for a fact that some so-called Black people in corporate America, they don't like white people at all. And they work with them. I had one of them tell me, if it was up to them, none of them would be in this country or none of them be alive, something like that. I was like, even such and such? She was like, yes, including the people I work with. And I was like, she told me that. She freaking told me that. This person was much older than me, by the way, by 10, 15 years. She told me that. I was like, whoa. Whoa. That's a wild thing to say. And I would go on to understand that, like, she's not the only person that disliked the entire group of white people, not just white conservatives. With that said, I also know that white liberals are some of the fakest, which is why I appreciate white conservatives a little bit more, because they're a little bit more honest. They're a little bit more raw. They're a little bit more straightforward. White liberals, many of them are just as racist. They are liberal. They are progressive, right? They are Marxist. Not because they care about so-called Black folks. They care about the quote-unquote progression of society. No. They just gay. They care about the LGBTQ community. And it just so happened that in order to fight for that community, they've already attached the Black community to it. Or they've attached the LGBTQ movement to the Black community or the Black movement. The progression of the Black community, so to speak, right? That's really who they're for. Or they're for women's rights. What do they really mean by that? What rights do women not have that men have? Right? What they mean is the right to unalive my baby if I choose to. If I don't want it, it's not a baby, it's a fetus. Literally, it's a human fetus still nonetheless. Don't matter. If I don't want it, it's not a human life. But if I want it and I'm pregnant and you accidentally unalive it, you should go to prison. How that work? That's not consistent logic. Is it a human life or not? Clearly it is. Really what they're for are women's rights to unalive their babies in the womb. They're not for so-called Black people. They're just as racist as some of the people they're accusing of being racist on the right, right? But I digress.
Interesting that they chose to speak to you, and they chose to speak to you for the same reason that you're a conservative, for the same reason Turning Point did, because you're safe. They know you're a Black man who'll do what he's told. You're an unremarkable Black man who they know they can count on to be obedient. They pick you for the same reason they pick dogs. What is very interesting to me is this is Nancy Grace.
I left to believe that he goes out swimming all on his own, and the friend girl leaves, the mates from school leave, everybody just leaves him out in the water and he dies.
Right.
Now, Nancy Grace is a career prosecutor. She has tried 100 felony trials, 100, and not lost one. And she thinks that's something suspicious. But the social media influencer who failed at football and was a mediocre cop all of a sudden knows more than that. I don't know what happened. You don't know what happened. But I do know this. You said that a young woman with a pot of water acted so suspiciously that she should be shot by cops.
Oh my gosh, bro. I did not know he was going to go there. That just struck so much anxiety through my body hearing that. So what he's talking about is the Sonya Massey case from 2024. And again, I've covered that extensively on this channel. One of the most disgusting videos I've ever, like, it's bringing tears to my eyes, bro, in this very moment. One of the most infuriating moments I've ever seen from anybody, because that's one of those moments I want to get to you. And I don't want to hurt you. You're an officer, but you may You may get the best of me. I just want to get to you and just have a conversation with you on camera for everybody to see. And I often say to him, by the way, I don't know if I ever told you all this. He actually saw my video from like 2 years ago and hopped in the comment section on YouTube and said that I was ignorant and didn't know what I was talking about. The unaliving of Sonya Massey was justified. If y'all go and watch that video, craziest thing in the world. Police officers coming into this woman's house. She called them because she was in fear that somebody was outside her house. This woman clearly has some sort of mental disorder, but not in a sense where she's attacking people. She's a threat to anybody. She's very sweet, very nice. Even told the officers, I love you. On body cam footage on the front porch, she told them, please don't hurt me, I love you. Officers pretended that they didn't hear her say that, go into her house. The officer helped himself into her house. She didn't invite him in. He asked her for her ID. Why do you need her ID? She called you out. You looked around her house. You didn't find anybody. You saw that her car windows were busted out, right? And you were getting ready to leave. You turn around, decide to go in the house and ask for her ID. She sits on the couch, going through her purse, looking for her ID for you. She's speaking with you. She's having a conversation with you. At one point, she gets up to go into her kitchen to turn off her boiling hot water. The kitchen is on the other end of the room. There's the police officer standing in the living room by the front door, not even remotely close to this woman. She didn't get the pot and walk back into the living room. She stayed in the kitchen at the sink. Police officer gets threatened. Huh? What are you threatened of? Pulls his weapon and says, I'll shoot the SHIT out of you if you throw that on me. And she's like, please don't shoot. She's not trying to attack him. She's not cursing him. And where she made the mistake was when she said, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus Christ. And that must have struck some demon in him. He shot that woman like 4 times. What are we talking about, dog? Officer Tatum said that was justified. So let's see what Officer Tatum had to say in return. We heard what D.L. Hughley had to say for the most part. Now we're going to hear what Officer Tatum, the Christian, the follower of Christ, the person who's held to a different standard than D.L. Hughley, who I do not believe is a believer, right? Let's see what he had to say. The Christian.
This is for D.L. Hughley and all them low vibration people that follow you. First and foremost, bro, you don't want to talk trash to me. You don't want to get into a personal debate or argue with me. You need to just stick to politics, bro. Quit being a softy because you cannot debate me and win whatsoever. But let's start with some personal things that I think you wouldn't want people to talk about with you. And I don't know why you saying stuff and you live in a glass house. You talking about my wife. How about let's talk about your wife who you cheated on? And let's talk about the fact that you're not even man enough to stand up and protect your daughter after another young man abused her. She told you about it and you didn't do nothing because you soft.
Crazy. I don't know the full details of that. I don't know if that's actually what happened. But to behaving, to conducting yourself, you both hold yourself to a different standard. This is you stooping down to his level. This is showing that it's nothing to get you to stoop down to your level. You're doing this off a guilty conscience, bro. You're upset because what you're doing, everybody sees what you're doing, despite some of these weird comments here. Right?
You ain't a real man. And then you go and have a baby out of wedlock and you can't even be there for your son.
Gossiping. This is gossip. This is straight gossip. Let me get on here and just air out your dirty laundry. Yeah. Let me just remind people why you're a bad person.
If you fail your son, he dies. Could literally get your son killed by not getting him ready for a world that won't see him that way. Like everybody tells you, put your hands on the wheel or stay away from this or don't do this. Black boys don't get that comfort, and you know it.
But don't talk.
And real quick, I wish I can go back there. Something else I want to just share for the record, and I've spoken about this, I believe, on Patreon before. Those of you that watch my much deeper content, whenever you see these comedians and entertainers get on stage and they wear all black, which, by the way, ironically, I'm in all black right now too. That's kind of funny. That's just by happenstance. Typically, I'm in gray sweats, but I'm also not in the entertainment industry. I'm also not some high level influencer. Typically, when you see these entertainers, comedians like just off heart, just off memory, Kevin Hart comes to mind. He does it a lot. And if you don't believe me, just Google it right now. Kevin Hart does this often in most of his stand-ups. I believe comedian Dave Chappelle is typically like this. D.L. Hughley is another one who gets up there and they perform in all black. That is because witches typically perform in all black, allegedly. What do I mean by that? Because they believe in something called white and black magic. What does that mean? When they wear all black, they believe. I'm not saying this is my belief. This is what they believe. That when they dress in all black, this is them conjuring spirits, right? Conjuring some sort of quote unquote magic from within. That is what it's meant in their occultic world, right? When they wear all black. It is when they wear all white. It is when they wear all white that they are conjuring some sort of spirits or some sort of magic from externally, right? From outside of themselves. Black means they're drawing from within. All white means that they're drawing from without, which will explain the all white parties that P. Diddy was performing. And also you have, I forget his name, they have the all white parties with all the celebrities, but we'll get into that because that's actually a video I'm working on right now that I plan to have out tomorrow or tomorrow or the next day. Anyways, you're going to notice that with D.L. Hughley, he was in all black. So, yeah.
To me, a man who is here for my family. I take care of my kids. I take care of my mama who's black. I take care and support my niece and nephews. I support my cousin in prison through Securus. I'm a real black man doing real stuff. Y'all fake and projecting. And then you want to talk about being me in law enforcement or the fact that I failed the team. Dude, I played college football. I didn't make it to the NFL. Good. I'm glad I don't have CTE. And I became a police officer because it's honorable to do that. You will never in your life put your life on the line for black people. You won't. You will talk. You'll be in the booth. You'll tell jokes about black people, but you ain't never gonna put your life on the line for black people like I did. I had an honorable career. I was a PIO. I was a field training officer. I teach new officers how to be officers. I was on the SWAT team. And
if that's what you truly did, for the amount of time that you couldn't have done it, and if that's the reason you did, that is to say, if you actually patrolled in black neighborhoods, then I do appreciate your service. Regardless of how I disagree with you, I do appreciate that.
I'm a man of God. I understand when God is telling me I need to do something different, and I became a political commentary, and I'm more successful than you are. And you've been doing it since I was a kid. And now look at you. You need to hang it up, passing out on stage as a failed comedian.
That's crazy, bro. Like saying that serves what purpose, Officer Tatum? As a follower of Christ, teasing him for almost dying or fainting on stage. We don't know what happened here, but does what?
I got you. And then you want to go.
There's nothing funny about that. There's nothing funny about mentioning that.
Personal about Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk was a good dude. You only shed tears for people who are good men.
But you said that you wouldn't even shed tears if something happened to your own children. You said that. I'll find the clip and back it up. You've said that multiple times. They asked you, they said you wouldn't cry with your own children. He said no, because I would have to be a foundation and a backbone for my wife. What?
And I thought about his children. That's what made me choke up and cry, because he was a good guy. Y'all out here crying for George Floyd, who was a crackhead, robbing black women at gunpoint and all that. You are lame for what y'all shed tears over. And then let's move to the Nolan Wells case. How much effort have you put in the Nolan Wells case? Who have you interviewed? Have you tried to get to the bottom of what happened? Did you travel to Horn Island? Did you travel to Mississippi? Not one time, bro. You were in a booth somewhere crying about white people all day.
I'm with you on that. Again, I think two things can be true at the same time. Yeah, sure. You put in a little bit more effort other than just social media commentary. That's fair. But your intentions behind it was very nefarious. All right. It was very nefarious. It made no sense to, if you're gonna interject into this case and interview people, how about you hold a neutral ground? Instead, you were helping them, trying to build the narrative that they were innocent, which is weird when people already see you as a person that takes up for white people unapologetically under all circumstances. How about you become a person that takes up for truth under all circumstances, regardless of who it corroborates or exonerates? But we don't ever see that from you. which tells me you know how to cater to your audience, which brings me to the purpose of today's video. I titled this video something along the lines of Officer Tatum exposed by a psychotherapist. I saw this video and it blew my mind because these are all the things that I've been saying about Officer Tatum. Officer Tatum is not his own man, allegedly. I believe that he has been placed into position. I believe he's been funded and built up just like Charlie Kirk was. Some people are just more brilliant than others. Some people are given bigger platforms than others. Some people are given bigger scripts than others, if you will. Officer Tatum is no different. There's a few things that was shared and psychoanalyzed about Officer Tatum by this therapist, and it's brilliant. As many of you all that's been following the channel know, I am somebody that has a master's degree in public service, but part of my undergrad work was psychology. That is to say, I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, and I was well on my way to becoming a doctor in mental health therapy, right? Mental health counseling or psychiatry, if you will. After about 4 years, I went ahead and pivoted and stepped into public service, for those of you that don't know. However, the reason why I share that is to say that typically the angle I approach things are typically from a psychoanalyzing perspective. So I always have a level of appreciation when I see someone else doing the same thing. And this psychotherapist hit it right on the money. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
Past few weeks, I've become very aware of an online personality who goes by the name Officer Tatum. Officer Tatum is a man named Brandon Tatum, who has built quite a following and reputation for being a conservative African-American, a right-wing African-American. And the way that he's conducted himself since the Nolan Wells case has exploded has gotten me interested. And what I wanted to understand was, how does someone who's an African-American have the ideas that he has, have the ideals that he has, and build a platform that he has? So I wanted to delve into the psychology of how a personality like that develops and where it might come from.
When I first watched this video, just so you all can understand something. When I first watched this video earlier today, I thought to myself, this might be he may end up being a liberal. I don't know. I said, this is probably some super liberal progressive guy, probably doesn't believe in God, who is just confused why a person like Officer Tatum, why a black person, or how a black person can be so publicly critical of their own community. That's the angle I thought he was coming from. And I'm like, you're not a therapist. You're not being objective here. But I'm glad I gave him an opportunity, because while he still gave me reason to believe that he is liberal or more progressive leaning, which I'm going to speak on that here in just a second, I'm going to chime in. He did do a great job of breaking down Officer Tatum from a psychological perspective. And he explains how a person like that can come together outside of being funded, blackmailed, sponsored to do the things that he's doing. There's another mental aspect that doesn't just apply to Officer Tatum. It applies to others as well. But let's see what he has to say.
So it's interesting, because if you look at Brandon Tatum's history, you have to first understand his family. His family are full of very, very successful people and very successful athletes. One of his family members was an All-American at Ohio State University and became an NFL All-Pro. Another one of his family, I think his grandfather, was a high fire department personality in Fort Worth, Texas, where he's from. He went to Dunbar High School, where he was a
police officers, firemen. A lot of them are typically Masons. I'm curious if he comes from a family of Masons.
Standout football player, absolutely stellar football player. And in that part of the world, in Texas, high school football is a really big deal. And Officer Brandon Tatum was extraordinarily successful, went on to college to play football, and had aspirations to play in the NFL. He went undrafted, which must have really caused him some struggle and caused him some difficulty. And then after going undrafted, he became a police officer in Arizona, where he also had gone to college. Now, this is all important stuff to understand, because just like in any family, living up to the family legacy is always a pressure. And when you come from a family that is stacked with so much athletic success, you feel like I have to live up to the success that my family has set for me. And oftentimes when you fail to do that, that sense of failure is a real struggle and leads to a sense of belonging. I'm going to get to that in a second, but leads to a sense of belonging. So now he's also experienced a struggle at becoming an officer and wasn't able to do that for long term. And he stopped becoming an officer, and then he starts a security company. Now, it's interesting because at some point he starts working for Charlie Kirk, who was a very prominent conservative, very prominent right-wing conservative personality that I'm sure everybody at this point has heard about. And sadly, he was assassinated. And as Brandon Tatum is working for Charlie Kirk, he starts building his own platform. Now, here's where I think things become really important. When you have been dealing with failure over a long period of time and you have a significant sense of desire for a sense of belonging, the internet is a very interesting place because you can build content for certain communities.
Bingo. And I'm going to finish it here in just a moment. I actually have so much more to show you all. You're going to really enjoy today's live if you're able to catch this. Spot on. But I do want to say something. Just for the record, I'm not a big fan of calling something a failure simply because you did it for a number of years and then you pivoted. I don't necessarily believe it's a failure. I don't even always believe something is a failure, even if you're fired from the job, because everything can be a learning or a teachable moment for people. And it can be the very thing that you needed to experience to lead you to what your true purpose is. So it's not always a quote unquote failure. I don't like the word failure simply because you didn't do it for a super long period of time and you're trying something that's now something completely unrelated to the last thing you did. I don't always see that as a bad thing. If you're pivoting, you're always trying. And this is to anybody that's watching right now, especially my young men, but anybody, but especially my young men that's watching. If you're always pivoting, you're trying, you have a plan, and you always putting the next foot forward to try to provide for your family, to try to make a plan. You're not sitting on your butt all day. You're not making excuses and crying, right? Playing video games when you're drowning in debt, right? Playing video games or just sitting around drinking liquor, drinking beers, smoking weed. When you have 3 kids and you don't know how you're going to pay for your kids' school at the beginning of the year, get off your behind as the man, especially as an adult in general, but as a man, your job is to provide under any circumstances for your family. So if you're able to do that, I respect it. I don't call it a failure because that didn't work out for you. Everything isn't for everybody. And sometimes it's not until you try it for you to find it out. But everything else, I think he's spot on.
And experience that sense of belonging. And being around Charlie Kirk, he's going to understand how to build content for the audience that is also right-wing conservative that Charlie Kirk was serving. Now, look, I want to be very clear here. There is nothing wrong with anybody being conservative, right-wing, have whatever views you want to have. And it doesn't really matter whether you're white, black, or Hispanic. It doesn't really matter. But what stands out to me about the content of Brandon Tatum is he spends a lot of time saying really disparaging, disrespectful things about historical black people, about people like Harriet Tubman. I saw him making very difficult, very, very disrespectful comments about Rosa Parks and the civil rights movement, agreeing with Charlie Kirk that black people were better off during the slave days than they are today. So why would someone have...
No. I've never in life, and this has been debunked multiple times, and this is not even me attacking the psychotherapist because I believe he may just be misinformed here, and I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. Charlie Kirk has never said that so-called black individuals were better off doing slavery. What he said was there was a period of time prior to the civil rights movement that the black community was thriving, and that's true. That's true, right? When you look at the statistics, sure, you say, well, that maybe those statistics are incomplete, but it was true that there was more people that was educated. Our families were together. We had 2-parent homes. It was a different time, but there were other things. I do agree that there were other things that's left out of that, but I believe we had culture then. I've notoriously said on this channel, everybody won't agree, especially everybody in the so-called black community. We don't have a culture, all right? So-called black Americans do not have a culture. Hip-hop music is not our culture. Let's start there, right? We don't own the radio stations. We don't get to decide what the music is. We don't. There's somebody else in boardrooms that make those executive decisions. Hence, or a la why most of our music is destructive, because we're not the people that are behind it, right? We're not the ones making the calls. Hip hop music is not our culture. All right. Michael Jordan sneakers are not our culture. That's not culture. A sense of identity is a great start to know if you have culture or not. All right. When every time we have a leader in our community and it's a celebrity, a comedian, an athlete, we're the only community in the world that applies to. What other community in the world is led by or have role models that are celebrities? No other community. You know who the role models are in the other communities in the world? Their parents, their dad, their mom, their uncle. All right, their pastor, their preacher. Those are role models for people. All right, their high school teacher, right? Their grandmother who was fighting cancer, who helped raise them. Those are the role models. It's only in the so-called black community. I'm not even totally blaming it on so-called black people. I'm saying that was forced upon us. Now we have to do our part in unlearning those things. Unlearning those things. That's a fact. All right? So, no.
Tubman.
So, no, he did not say that. He did not say anything about slavery being better for black people. Charlie Kirk did not say that. All right? And Officer Tatum did not say that either. So we got to make sure that we're being truthful here and accurate with the things that we're stating. And we're all going to mess up. So it's on us to just correct ourselves. All right. Now, the Rosa Parks thing, I think he's going to say something else about Rosa Parks. And then I'll chime in once he mentions her again.
I saw him making very difficult, very, very disrespectful comments about Rosa Parks and the civil rights movement, agreeing with Charlie Kirk that black people were better off during the slave days than they are today. So why would someone have these obviously egregious opinions about black people when you are in fact black? Because I think it becomes more important to Brandon Tatum to have the acceptance that he so seeks, regardless where it comes from, and make content for those people. And there is a significant reward for that stuff in the world we live in now. So if I start making that kind of content and put it up online, I'm going to start building a following, and I'm going to get a lot of feedback that tell me that it's good, and I'm going to get a lot of people telling me that they're glad that I make the kind of content I make. I'm going to get a lot of people that are encouraging me, even if those people do not look like me, and even if the content I make is actually not serving anybody's well-being.
That I would also agree with that as well, sir. I do not think that there's anything necessarily wrong with being affirmed or being complimented on your work that you are placing into the stratosphere, the social media universe, if you will. Building a platform, and I don't believe he's arguing that there's anything inherently wrong with doing that. However, here is, in my opinion, right? This is why I believe, and this is how I believe you can measure if what this therapist just said is true or not. If Officer Tatum didn't just want to be accepted and didn't want to just fit in, and did almost everything he could to only appease one community and to make sure not to upset that community, this is a way to measure it, in my opinion. If Officer Tatum was to hear this therapist say this, he would probably say that's not true. I'm just about truth, and I tell the black community what they need to hear. Black community don't like it for the most part. Some of them don't mind. Many of them don't like it. They get upset. White people, especially white conservatives, they appreciate what I do because they know I'm telling the truth, and they know if they were to say it, they would get a lot more pushback. Here's the problem. If you were about just telling the truth, like you said, much like I've mentioned and repeated multiple times in this live already, Officer Tatum, why don't you tell the truth about Trump? When Trump is going off the rails and you don't agree with everything any man or any woman does, correct? How come when Trump goes off the rails, you just don't talk about it? Much like the small example I gave at the beginning of the live, if there's a racist black person doing something or saying something about white people, generalizing all white people, you're quick to make a video about it. And you're going to say something along the lines of, see, this is why I say, and I hate when people say black people can't be racist. Here's a great example of it. That's what you would say. And I would agree with you. We can be just as racist. And by racist, I just simply mean our ideology about the other group. I know many people debate what racism actually means and that you have to have power to actually be racist. That is not what racism means. That's what systemic racism means. Individual racism has nothing to do with power. It has nothing to do with what you physically did to a person. Do you dislike that person because of their skin color? Do you dislike that person because of the skin color of their family members? That is racist by definition. And yes, we can be racist. How come when that video of that white woman, when that white man went viral on TikTok, got 35 million views for doing or said X, Y, and Z to a group of black people that was just minding their own business? Why don't you cover that on your channel? What would be the answer to that? Why in this photo here, we can see you here with Mr. Kennedy, who made all these promises about make America healthy again. How has he done that? Why are you holding him accountable? Right? Why aren't you upset and reacting to the fact that he was in the Epstein files? That being Kennedy. He was very close to Jeffrey Epstein. I've covered that extensively on the channel. Right? Why aren't you making videos about Trump's disastrous handling of the Epstein files? Going off on people who is demanding that he do what he said he would do. That, sir, is proof that you're not objective. Your audience is not going to be happy with that. Especially when every other video, you have countless merchandise with Donald Trump's face all over it. How in the world can you go back now and never be critical of Trump now? You got all types of merchandise of Trump with his full body tattooed, Trump with a gold chain, making all these caricatures of Donald Trump. Trump with his red MAGA hat on backwards with the grill in his mouth. Right? Trump mugs, Trump hats, Trump socks. You can never. Because you know deep down, race is going to eventually get mentioned with some of the white conservatives, not all of them. They're going to tell you to stay in your place. We're allowing you to be over here, stay in your place. You know it. Even if they know you're a truth teller on certain topics, the moment you step out of line and start saying things that they don't agree with, that's hurting their feelings, you know what that means for your bottom line. You got a family to feed and you know not to do it. Much like a lot of these people following the Charlie Kirk case. They're just regurgitating Candace Owens videos just to make money. They know if they ever disagree with Candace, they're ever critical of anything the biggest followers of this investigation says, it's going to affect their bottom line. The audience is not going to like it. I'm just going to regurgitate what they're saying. I'm just going to repost their content. At some point, you got to have some integrity. It's one and the same.
I'm going to continue to make it. The other thing is there's a financial reward in it.
Bingo.
I'm going to get money for doing this. I'm going to get money from the platforms. I'm going to get sponsor deals. I'm going to get brand deals. But more than anything else, I'm going to get attention and I'm going to get accepted by a community. So when we are asking people like Brandon Tatum to be different, what we're actually asking them to do is stop seeking the attention that your psyche clearly desires and stop seeking
the approval. The approval, right? And I'm surprised he didn't mention this here, but typically the people like Candace and Officer Tatum get pushback from the black community or a portion of the black community, not all of us, not only for being a conservative, but they'll go a step further and say that there are self-hating black folks. And the proof to that, or what points or supports that claim, is that they married folks that were not black. That just so happened to apply to both Candace and Officer Tatum, which could be a coincidence. I don't know if it's a coincidence. I don't think there's anything wrong with interracial dating. For me, I just think that I would like to be with somebody that shares the culture with me. So whether your skin color is the same as mine or not, I don't care. But I want us to just understand life the same. If we don't understand life or we look at life drastically differently, coming from the same culture don't mean you see life the same. But what I mean is a lot of references, a lot of upbringings. We get it. We both get it. For me, that's what is important to me. And if I just happen to be attracted to you, all right? And so that's what led to me becoming engaged to my fiance. It made the most sense, right? and the fact that I love her. All right, as a person. So there's that. But I do think that it's interesting when you consider those things, and something I've noticed is that Candace has never, you've never seen Candace's hair natural. You said, well, she has her natural hair every episode. No, that's not what I mean. The way it naturally grows out of her scalp, which is towards the sun. I don't think we'll ever see Candace's hair like that. That I would like to ask Candace why she always straightens flat, what is it called? Flat iron her hair. Why does she always press her hair downward instead of just letting it grow out naturally? I would like to know. That's not even attacking Candace, because that's a problem not with Black conservatives, but with just the Black community altogether. Most Black women always wear hair weaves, and that's becoming a bigger issue in our community over the past number of years. Most men in general of any community, race, color, creed, but especially Black men as well, prefer natural women. That's just a fact. All the eyelashes, the fake hair, the lace fronts, the bust downs, as they call them, the makeup, even makeup, men don't care. If you was to ask them, they would prefer to see their woman natural. They want to know what they have. I just happen to get lucky and blessed, not lucky, but blessed, to have found a woman that honors that for me. Baby, I don't want to see you with the fake lashes, the fake hair. I don't even want to see your makeup. I want to see you with your flaws. I want to know that I love you for you. I'm attracted to you for you. Anyways, I'm not digressing. The point is, these are typically things that you hear.
Belonging that your psyche clearly desires, which is very likely a strategy that you've developed to cope with all of the shortcomings that have happened up until now. So I found this man and his story psychologically just really fascinating, because I want to know, like, how does that get built, and how does someone who is African American, who is raised in an African American part of town, Dunbar High School is in the Black part of Fort Worth, Texas, who plays athletics, which is a very diverse community. How do you go from that to saying things like, you believe Black people were better off during slave days?
We've already covered that. He did not say that.
And that you believe that Rosa Parks and the civil rights movement that happened in Montgomery, Alabama was not credible because it was staged. And if you know the historical context of it, it wasn't staged in the way that he was alluding to.
Well, I'm not so sure about how he alluded to it, but the Rosa Parks incident was 100% staged. For those of you that don't know, I also covered this in my Martin Luther King documentary. Rosa Parks, the whole infamous bus incident, wouldn't give her a seat up. That didn't happen organically. That's not what happened. The truth of that matter, many of you all may know this already, especially if you've watched the documentary. And I know I've referenced the documentary several times in this video. If I can remember, I'll put the link in the description. There was an incident that happened, I believe, with a 14-year-old girl naturally, and that was an organic situation like weeks before, maybe as much as 2 or 3 months before, where she wouldn't give up her seat. It went viral. Viral in the sense of in the 50s, 60s version of viral, right? And it made the newspaper, or it was enough to make the newspaper, but it didn't. I don't think it made it to that point. I don't want to butcher the story too much, but she was like 13, 14 years old, but she was pregnant. And because of that, the people who were really behind the civil rights movement, right? They who must not be named, did not want to use that story because it would not have been a great look if you used a 13 or 14-year-old little girl who was pregnant. So they recreated the situation weeks later with Rosa Parks, who, there's a few things about Rosa Parks for those of you that don't know. She was Eastern Star. If you don't know what Eastern Star is, it is the female version of Freemasons. Rosa Parks just so happened to coincidentally, she was married to a man who had a car. I'm going to say it again. Rosa Parks and her husband had a car. Yes, she was on a bus that day refusing to give up her seat. Rosa Parks also, in addition to being a female version of a Mason, having a vehicle herself, Rosa Parks also was a part of a school where I believe she came across her first set of handlers. And at this school, she was classmates or members alongside Dr. Martin Luther King and several other people who will go on to be a part of the civil rights movement. If nothing else is suspicious about the Rosa Parks incident, answer this for me. Why is it that they were able to get a perfect photo of Rosa Parks just sitting on the bus? How? Where did that photographer come from? You said, well, that's when they finally made it there when she refused to. No, that's not what happened. Because there were other people sitting on the bus waiting for their stop as well. We can see them in the photo. It was staged. It was. You said, well, it was staged for a good reason. To push the country further away from racism. Fine, make that argument then. But it was 100% staged. It wasn't an organic situation. Which leads me to my next point. The civil rights movement in general was a front. Allegedly. Everything I say in this video is alleged. The entire civil rights movement was not about black people. It wasn't. It was about the LGBTQ movement, believe it or not, and it was about the community that must not be named. Right? Martin Luther King Jr. was a front as well, and I don't believe he realized it until the end of his life, which is part of the reason he has been quoted making the infamous statement, "I led my people into a burning building." Martin Luther King realized that what he was being used for. When I found out that he didn't write the I Have a Dream speech, many people say, well, a lot of people didn't write their speeches. That's not news. It kind of is. When you're talking about a dream you've had, that dream is unique to you. Maybe you can get somebody to help you write it out, right, in a way that resonates with the people. But that's not what I Have a Dream speech was about. Then when you look at the people that wrote it for him, the man that was really behind Martin Luther King Jr., I'm digressing. It'll get off into some other stuff. You should really check out the documentary. It's like 2 hours long. Anyways, let's get back to it.
Or how do you say really horrible things about Harriet Tubman when you are in fact black and are benefiting from the work of people like Harriet Tubman?
I agree. And what I will say, sir, is despite everything I just said, to my point from earlier, notice how those are the only people that he'll expose. It's not just so-called black people and liberals that need to be exposed in this world. Why is that Officer Tatum's main focus? That's what people should be asking. Right?
With the freedoms you enjoy today, the very fact that you can go online, and post this kind of content, you owe people like Harriet Tubman that ability. The very fact that you could go off to college and get educated and do those things that you do are actually a result of the civil rights movement. And during the slave days, that could not have happened. So anyway, that is my psychological breakdown of how Brandon Tatum became the kind of person that you see now online espousing these crazy and ridiculous ideas. So what do you think of the breakdown? You want me to do some more of personalities that I run across online? Leave a comment below. Happy to do it. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, brother, I think you were on to something. And to my surprise, I actually see that he went somewhere else. But before we hear a little bit more of the therapist, because he had some more things to say that were spot on, he went ahead and broke Officer Tatum all the way down. Before we get to that, I want to share with you all another snippet from the debate that Officer Tatum did on Jubilee. And this is, once again, to show you all that he was so inequipped, unprepared for this debate. Listen to what this man said.
Surrounded claim is that systemic racism is used as an excuse to avoid personal responsibility.
As I stated before, I think two things can be true at the same time, Mr. Tatum. I believe that there is some truth to that. Again, many people may not agree. That's all right. I don't believe that that's a top 10 issue in the so-called black community. I can just start listing off several things. I think that you should probably consider getting to know a female. I prefer, as a follower of Christ, that you should marry her first. But at the very least, you should spend an extensive amount of time getting to know a female or getting to know a person before you decide to lay down and have intercourse with them, right? I think we should exercise even in that point of using protection, being a little bit more sexually responsible. Sexually irresponsibility is completely out of control in several communities, including the Black community, right? I think having multiple kids by multiple different women is not making your life better. That is another issue, right? I think choosing, and I do believe that many of you are choosing not to work, even if it's a low-paying job, do what you can do for now until you can find something better, is also hurting our community. I think making the conscious effort to sell drugs, we can talk about how the drugs got into our community. I do believe that that is systemic and does tie back to the government. But you still have the autonomy and personal decision or ability to decide if you're going to do it or not. I think selling drugs to your own community does not help. I think committing petty crimes, misdemeanor crimes, or even felony crimes at any point in your life, let alone by the time you've graduated high school, is setting you back. It's not helping you. All right. I think choosing not to go, to vocational school, college, starting a business, but sitting around on your butt playing video games and complaining all day is not helping. All right. That's like 6, 7 things right there alone. Committing crimes, having babies out of wedlock, not working, not having a plan. All right. There are so many more important things before we even can get to racism and systemic racism that will make our lives substantially better. All right. Joining gangs, enforcing gang culture, and the list goes on.
My final surrounded claim is that systemic racism is used as an excuse to avoid personal responsibility. Slavery was never about race. It was about cheap available labor.
Chattel slavery was about race.
Yo, this man said that slavery was never about race. Now some of you are going to watch this and say, well, he meant historically outside of the U.S. That's not what he said. He said slavery is not about race, has never been about race. And they're going to get into the granularities of it. And I want you all to notice once again how he pivots. He's going to pivot. Let's run that back. That was ridiculous.
Avoid personal responsibility.
He can't. Because if he does that, then he would have to make a point that nobody should find controversial in 2026. But he believes subconsciously, he knows that if he says it, shoot, I'm going to sound too objective. My audience may not like, my main audience back at home, if you will, may not like that this gets clipped. And they may feel like I'm a race baiter now.
Well, I don't really.
Do you know what the difference is between just slavery and chattel slavery?
Right. Like the thing that happened in between the 16th and 19th century.
I don't see that being a major point to the conversation that we're having right now.
That literally made no sense. Did y'all see what he just did there? The gentleman asked Officer Tatum a very fair, a very direct, a very simple question. Sir, do you know the difference between slavery and chattel slavery? We understand that so-called black individuals enslaved other black individuals in Africa. We understand that it was so-called black individuals that also sold slaves to the Europeans that brought us over, which, by the way, it wasn't just Europeans. It was also the community who must not be named, right? Who I believe is behind pushing us against each other. Didi, it's a woman thing to have products. Come on to the channel and have a discussion with me about it. Rachel, it's all love when I say this, though. See how many men agree with you, because that's what should matter, right? Unless you're a lesbian. If you're attracted to men, it should be important to you what men are attracted to, right? Not to digress, but that's very important. It also should be important because your man is your leader, or at least he should be. All right. But did you see what Tatum just did there? It made no sense. He's like, well, that makes no sense that's not relevant to the conversation. What you talking about? That's very relevant. Let me translate to you all what he really means by that. Ah, shoot, I can't actually acknowledge that. And if I get into it, it's going to be a gotcha, except I'm going to be on the losing end of it. Shoot, Let me just pivot and try to get out of this. I'm trying to squirm my way out of this conversation. Because if I talk about chattel slavery, shoot, can't do that. Wasn't prepared. Listen to what he just said there. This is how you know this guy is extremely uneducated and unprepared. This is literally one of the worst performances I've ever seen. Many times throughout the 2-hour debate on Jubilee, you hear Officer Tatum saying to the person talking to him, explain that to me. Tell me about that. Or they'll ask him, have you heard about this law? No, I'm not. No, I haven't. Are you familiar with this case? Are you familiar with this policy? Are you familiar with this study? Right? Are you familiar with this case study? No, I am not. Tell me about it. Then they'll proceed to tell him about it. Or before they can proceed to tell him about it, he'll do what he just did here, which is what? He'll say, explain it to me. I don't agree with you. Hold up. Wait. How do you not agree with something that you're not even familiar with? You're not even sure of. You're not even educated on. Don't you want to hear the facts and the statistics first? Don't you want to hear the context first? This is low level. This is what you do when you're unprepared.
Care of the baby.
That's interesting. I can't co-sign. I can't corroborate if that's true or not. That's actually very, very interesting. And I'd love to see just I love to see the case study. I'd also love to see how many cases that they included in that, the sample size. I love to see the sample size of that, to see if that's actually credible. So I wanted to show you all that first. And now I'm going to show you all what the therapists have to say, because the therapists have more things to share. He went on to the Willie D show. Shout out to Willie D Live. As you can see here, it's called Psychotherapist DECODES, Officer Tatum. And funny enough, this came out just right before I went live. And he chose a thumbnail that says The Dark Truth. And I was literally going to put the same thing and talk about this guy. That was crazy to me. But now we're going to take a listen to what this, I didn't know he was going to be interviewing the therapist, but he interviewed the guy. And we're going to take a listen to what he had to say, just a few more minutes of what he had to say before we end today's live. As a reminder, please hit the like button, everybody. That goes a long way. I would really appreciate it.
And with this guy who was challenging him about medical racism, and the dude gave him the numbers and everything, and Buddy still pivoted, and he just refused to accept the truth. Why is it that some people defend a position at all costs?
Right.
Because there's something driving him not to be able to change his position.
Bingo. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. There is something externally that is driving him. I see that he's a shoe guy. He got the shoes back there. No knock to the therapist, but this is what I'm saying. This is such a big focus in our community. Even when he's probably doing very well for himself, so he has every right to do it. But a lot of times we're struggling to pay bills, but we're going to get the $250 J's that come out. That's the misalignment in the Black community. That's one of the biggest ones. We don't even have a job, but we're going to get this girl pregnant, and we're going to get ready for our second kid. Right? Doesn't just happen in the Black community. That's not my statement. That's not my position. But it does happen quite a bit. But yeah.
If you watch that interview, there's several things that stood out to me. Number one, he was completely ill prepared to have that debate.
Bingo. Thank you again. Once again, sir. Absolutely, he was. He was very unprepared, which makes you think what? Who told him to go on to Jubilee? Why now? As I've already asserted, I gave you all my position. My position is he went onto the show because it was a business decision. Officer Tatum and his handlers know that Officer Tatum is not a great debater. He's not the worst, but he's not the best debater. If you put him on a platform like Piers Morgan, where he's behind the camera, right, and maybe he can be getting information fed to him in real time, maybe you can have his notes set off to the side, but to go on to Jubilee and to have 30 people sitting around you, grilling you, that's different. That's different because they're free to mention and reference any study, any part of history, any part of the Constitution, and the list goes on. to me, it is very apparent to me that Officer Tatum's handlers told him, listen, now is a great time. Now that you've generated all of this attention, much of it is bad attention, negative attention. Now it's time to capitalize and go into Jubilee, because now there is an appetite for Officer Tatum. The Charlie Kirk case has caused your views to drastically drop, unless you mention Candace Owens and you say something controversial because you know people want to hear that, or unless you say something about Erica Kirk and your thumbnail alludes to maybe you're going to be critical about her in this video. But of course, once people watch the video, no, you're not going to be critical of her of any sort, despite all the reasons that you should be. Right? And because of the Charlie Kirk case, people have slowly stopped watching because of the foreign affairs with that one nation that must not be named. Your unprecedented, unwavering support and commitment to this one foreign nation, to Zionism, right? It has caused your views to drop quite a bit, not just on YouTube, but across all platforms. Almost all your comment sections are people clowning you. How do you bounce back from that? This Nolan Wells case is perfect. Interview the friends. Take a semi-neutral position, but try to help them look innocent, because that's consistent with your brand. You can't be objective, not against white people. Remember, you're the person that calls out the black community. You can't be on camera helping them, even if they're the true victims in the case or the potential victims in the case. No, that's not how it works. It's not how it works.
He did not have the facts. He did not have the data. Several times in an interview, someone would present him with knowledge related to the topic, and he would say, "I'm not aware of that," which is unbelievably inept, because if I'm going to go on a debate topic about, whether or not the earth is flat or not, I should be prepared to have that debate.
Exactly,
and have the data
sir.
points related to it.
Exactly.
Everything he said was very much like, "No, I'm not aware of that," which put the other person he was debating in the position to have to inform him, which created an interesting dynamic. So
because what happens then, which is what I was just stating. See, this guy, he and I think a lot alike. Maybe it's a psychology thing, I don't know. But he is absolutely spot on. What it does is he pivots where he is not in the hot seat anymore, that being Officer Tatum. Now what I'm going to do is we're going to debate and we're going to analyze your statement as the challenger. I'm going to tell you all what my prompt is. That is that Trump and the Republicans are far better for the black community than the Democrats. Now, when you sit down as a challenger and you're going to actually challenge me on Republicans, things that Republicans have done that may be detrimental, I'm going to pivot. And I'm going to say, no, let's talk about the Democrats. The Democrats did X, Y, and Z, and this is bad. Let's talk about that. Now, when you try to defend it, we can have a debate about that, and you can look bad. I can clip it, and I can make good money on my YouTube channel. That's why you need the right people to be able to notice when he does it and say, no, bro, you have a prompt. I want to talk to you about why you believe these things.
That person said, here are the medical data points about infant mortality rates, black women mortality rates, and he would present them to him, and ex-Officer Tatum would say, I'm not aware of that. So now this person has to teach him. So here's what that is. And then ex-Officer Tatum would not accept the teaching that came from the other person he was debating.
Right.
So to answer your question, like, why is it that some people just argue points, like, no matter what? It's because there's some sort of benefit from him holding that position. Number one, think of the brand deals that he must have. Think of the affiliations that he has, that if he does,
bingo,
in fact say, oh, wow, that's a good point. I guess the thing you're saying is true. He actually loses followers, loses money, loses connection, loses access, loses revenue. So
bingo, sir. I'm going to have to reach out to this guy, man. I'm going to have to reach out to this guy. He gets it. Bingo, sir. Absolutely. That is 100% what is happening here. Absolutely, sir. Nobody's taking the position that you should not be critical of the black community. Nobody's taking the position that you should not be enforcing personal responsibility. I think part of that is toxic because nobody can do everything on their own. That's a fact. Somebody's going to need help from somebody at some point in their life. However, there needs to be more accountability in the black community without a shadow of a doubt. But there is something unhealthy and something very strange about these individuals that only take one position. And even when when righteousness calls for them to take a different position in other cases, they either ignore those cases or find a way to take a separate position as long as it means to keep their audience happy. That is the definition of selling your soul. It's strange. It's very, very weird. Very weird.
He is not there in good faith to have a debate. He's there to protect his brand, and I'm sure Jubilee paid him to be there. So what I was watching, which was incredibly hard to watch, but what I was watching was a man who was just there fulfilling obligations for the external benefits that he gets. But there are several things he was doing.
Man, that is we're gonna run it back. That is very well said. I don't know if I could have said that as well as him, let alone better.
It was incredibly hard to watch. But what I was watching was a man who was just there fulfilling obligations for the external benefits that he gets.
What I was watching was a man there fulfilling the external benefits that he gets. Something to that effect. I mean, that was so incredibly well said. I agree. Part of the reason as well you know this is because if you watch the interview that Officer Tatum did with the two kids that were supposedly friends with Nolan Wells, the way that Officer Tatum was just sitting there, I'm going to call him Brandon Tatum, the way Brandon Tatum was just sitting in the seat with his legs crossed, as if he has this position of moral superiority or like he's just, such a high intellectual. He's sitting there back with his legs crossed, and I'm like, bro, which, by the way, he was in all black in that interview as well. Found that to be very interesting. What's that about? Every time I see Officer Tatum, other people make it look better. Like a lot of times when they have a book to promote, that's when an artist or an influencer will start making the rounds. They're promoting their book. They're promoting their documentary that just came out. They're promoting their album. So they'll come give interviews with the Breakfast Club, or they'll sit down with Piers Morgan. They'll give debates because it generates buzz and attention and all of this energy in their direction, towards their brand's direction. But some people make it look more organic. Like, okay, you convinced me that you were really here to debate that topic. You know what? I might actually check out your book on the back end. Officer Tatum is so bad at what he does that it looks like that's the only reason he's there, to promote his book, because he's so bad at everything else.
There are several things he was doing. Like, for example, that same guy who was presenting very concrete medical data points to him, he would respond by looking up. He would go like this. Right. Now, we know that when you're doing that, you're actually not you have disconnected from the content, and you're now accessing things in your brain. And what he's most likely accessing is
how do I pivot? He's accessing not how to respond to actually what was said to me. How do I pivot to get myself out of this that will benefit my brand, that will make me look good, that will make my audience happy, that will further push the message I want to push? I don't want to get into I don't really care about what's right and wrong. I care about just proving my point.
I respond to this in a way that maintains my brand. When you stay really connected, think about it in this way. Like if you're arguing with your partner and you're accusing your partner of infidelity, I'm going to be real specific here. If you were accusing your partner of infidelity, where were you last night? Who were you with, and what were you doing? And your partner goes like this. You are immediately going to be like, you are lying.
Right.
Yeah.
If you stay engaged in the conversation, that tells you that you're connected to the data and we're having an actual conversation. But the moment you go, you're accessing the creative part of your brain, which I experience that as he's trying to think, how do I respond to this debater, to this person that's debating me, in a way that protects the brand that I have, which is troubling. That was not a good faith debate. It was terrible to watch, actually.
Now, I know this is going to be difficult for you to do because you're a stand-up guy, but I need you to channel your inner Sambo.
And for the record, I like Willie D. I like a lot of the positions that he takes, but I don't like no human. There's not a single human on this planet that will agree with every other single human. There's not. You're never going to find a human you agree with on all topics. That's what makes us human. We're all going to differ in some regard, and that's okay. It's supposed to be that way. The moment the purpose of me mentioning this as it pertains to Willie D is because I tend to disagree with him more times than not on a plethora of different things. It's probably closer to 50-50, actually. I think he's way more liberal than I am. I'm pretty sure. Left-leaning, so to speak. So, yeah.
I need you. Okay, well, it's not in you, but I need you to channel it. I need you to go get it from one of the Sambos. Go get it and act like you a Sambo or something, right? Like, I'm trying to figure out, like, how does a person throw a community that they're from under the bus consistently while praising another community consistently, specifically a community that has shown the propensity to subjugate, undermine, discriminate, and hate the community which you're from?
Oh, that now, if he's meaning white conservatives, I'd love for him to just get into the details of what he means by that. Do I believe that there are many white conservatives that are racist? Absolutely. I believe Matt Walsh is one of them. Ben Shapiro another. I've talked about this many times. I think they're cowards. They'll never just flat out say that because they know it's wrong. It's still socially unaccepted to say out loud that you're a racist. So you have to hide behind the banner of I'm just holding them accountable, and I'm the bold white person in 2026 that will say what people say is the unthinkable. You're not, if as a white person, you're not allowed to hold black people accountable because they're going to call you racist. So I'm going to be the one bold enough to do it. That's the position that Matt Walsh takes. When in actuality, Matt Walsh actually do not like the community altogether. That's my position.
That's easy. No, I don't have that in me. But I am a well-read, well-researched person who can describe psychological phenomena pretty concisely.
Okay, help me with this, bro. I need the information on this.
Let the people know.
Well, the answer to that question is resentment.
Wow.
If I am from the black community,
this is going to be very interesting. I wonder if he's about to delve into some things that, like I said, people have said about Candace as well. They felt like she's been rejected before, and Candace has admitted that. In school, she got a lot of hate and pushback from the so-called black community, black girls in particular. When she did nothing wrong, they teased her for being smart. Well, for the record, that's actually a very more common thing, not just in the black community. That happens in communities in general when they're children. You get teased for being smart. The jocks are typically the ones that are more celebrated by children, the class clown, right? And a lot of times that's rooted in insecurity in children because they don't want you to outshine them in class. So it's not just the black community. So I while I do relate to Candace because I've experienced that in my life before as well, I do think that he's onto something if he goes in that direction, because sometimes when you have that resentment, you kind of hold on to it until a new community comes along and accepts you. Now you don't want to let go, and you feel like you're actually speaking truth to power. So why would you let it go? It's not until you have that moment, which most people are going to have that moment at some point, where you realize that. I think Vivek Ramaswamy is a great example. He's going through that now, where many of the communities that was just supporting him in the political run against Trump just 2 years ago have turned on him, and many of them are saying you're Indian. They told him, I believe, where is the caucus held? Is it Idaho, Iowa, wherever the caucus is held? They literally told his wife on camera that he was like, so what is the wife was asking, so what is it that the locals are saying is preventing them from voting for Vivek Ramaswamy? And at this time, I was crazy for Vivek Ramaswamy. Big, huge fan of his political campaign. I still stand by it to this day. I was also saying from the jump, I believe that Trump will win. I don't think anybody has a slight of a chance because I think it was predetermined. I don't think presidents are elected. I believe they are selected, allegedly. That's just my position. All right. So, and with that, they told his wife on camera, the lady looked at her husband looked at her, like they gave each other the should we be honest look. Older white couple, and fortunately, and I say fortunately because this honesty needs to be, being honest needs to be more celebrated, even if it hurts people's feelings, even if it's considered racist or sexist. At least we know how you really feel. She told him, she said, what most people are telling us is that he's a brown person. And she goes, he's a what? She goes, he's a brown person. And she was like, she kept a straight face, just like a politician or a politician's wife. She's like, oh, he's a brown person. They're like, yeah, like Muslim. I was like, bro, that's so crazy. That's so crazy. And that was in 2024. In 2026, I don't know if y'all saw some of the stuff that's happening with Vivek Ramaswamy now. They're straight up booing him at his concerts, at his rallies. You know, he's currently running for, I believe, senator of Ohio. I believe it's Ohio. And they're straight up booing him and telling him to go back to India. How dare you support, I believe it's H-1B visas. That's really where a lot of people turned on him. Him coming out supporting H-1B visas. So, yeah. Anyways.
And I have never felt accepted within that community.
Boom.
I never felt like in the in crowd, black girls I wanted to date, or black guys, doesn't matter, but black people I wanted to date always rejected me. And then you go off into another world. In this case, he went from Fort Worth, Texas, and a very black area of Fort Worth, Texas, an area of Fort Worth, Texas known as Stop 6. He went to Dunbar High School, which is an incredibly African-American part, well, it's an African-American school, predominantly African-American school. And he leaves that school, and then he goes to a school in Arizona to play football. So imagine if you have not experienced acceptance at Dunbar High School, and you were a standout athlete and all these things, and then you go to University of Arizona, which is no longer predominantly black, and let's say the white community, like they want you in their fraternities, and the white girls want you to date, and they're saying positive things about you. You begin to build resentment towards your own people and start to seek acceptance from another group, which I
believe there's a lot of truth in that. No, I do not believe that absolves the fact that Officer Tatum, Candace Owens, and the likes have said many things that's true and needs to be said about the black community. But I believe there's a lot of truth to that. I don't think that's true and applies to so-called black conservatives or black people who are publicly critical of their community, similar to how Candace and Officer Tatum has done over the years. No, I do not believe that. But when you are consistently doing it over an extended period of years, so much where you're willing to make documentaries and you're willing to interview people, anything that holds the black community in contempt or under the spotlight, under heavy criticism or critique for 10 plus years, it's like at some point you got to feel some type of like, okay, I think I got my point across. Maybe I should expand my psychoanalyzing, my magnifying glass, not just with the black community and white liberals, but maybe with everybody, not just the Democrats, maybe with everybody that is falling short of my standard or righteousness. But you never see the pivot. He keeps it going. That should tell you something.
I believe is exactly what happened with Brandon Tatum.
How do you know when someone truly believes that what they're saying is independent versus trying to protect an identity that they built?
Ooh, that's a great question. And again, I haven't watched this already, y'all. So I'm hearing this for the first time with you all. These are some great questions, Willie D. For sure. I'm gonna give you a like, bro.
It would move. Like if I genuinely believed, like I'll continue to use like a silly example, but if I genuinely believe the earth is flat, I'm not being paid for that belief. I have no brand deals for that belief. I just believe the earth is flat. And then I meet Neil deGrasse Tyson, who proves to me that the earth is in fact a globe.
You will pivot. And not only would you pivot, sir, you would have no problem with doing so. You would be humble. You would do it with humility. Life goes on. It's not the end of the world. In fact, people will respect you even more. Oh, he previously believed something else. He was very passionate about it, in fact. Then he met his match. He was presented with facts. He pivoted. Wow. What a stand-up, honorable guy full of integrity. That's a guy I could trust because he just follows the truth. He doesn't have an agenda. He's not trying to protect an agenda or a narrative or a movement. He's trying to protect truth. That's all he cares about. That's clearly not the case here. And I would say early on, that wasn't the case with Candace.
Then you would see me go, oh, wow, I didn't know that. Thank you, Neil deGrasse Tyson. I really appreciate that. But if I truly believe the earth is flat and I've got 2 million subscribers on Instagram because I keep posting flat earth content.
Ooh, and now you've built that platform and you feel like you owe it to them. You're going to let them down if you ever pivot and actually hold that community accountable. That is to say, in this scenario, if you've built 2 million followers by pushing the fact that the earth is flat and you've since been convinced, debunked, otherwise, what are you going to tell those 2 million people? What are you going to talk about with those 2 million people? To not do those things? To not believe those things? To not say those things? Now it's like 2 million versus 1. That's like bad for business. Like I've told you all, I've had a saying that I've said the last maybe 2 or 3 years. The internet is not nuanced. You cannot be nuanced on the internet and try to thrive. That's very, very rare. If you're going to start a YouTube channel about cars, start a YouTube channel about cars. If you're good at it, you'll thrive. But you can't start a YouTube channel about cars and then all of a sudden you get on one day and post a video about politics, about hairstyles, about boxing. People tune into your show for cars. When you're trying to be nuanced and diverse, people are not going to appreciate it. You've always said great things about Trump. How dare you make a video saying very fair, objective things about Trump, about something he did that was wrong? You can't do that. You told us you liked him. It's only in real life can you be nuanced like that. Not on the internet.
I have brand deals and I get access to very powerful people. I mean, Brandon Tatum has been photographed at the White House with some of the most prominent people in the Trump administration, including Donald Trump. Bingo. So I get access. I get money. So now when Neil deGrasse Tyson tries to prove to me the earth is flat, my brain starts processing like, wait, whoa, I can't accept this.
Bingo.
Because if I do accept this, I lose access and I lose money. So that you can tell when someone has an independent thought because they're perfectly comfortable moving that independent thought.
And yes, you would be correct. There are just as many people, just as large platforms on the left. He's not the only one. Officer Tatum is just the topic of discussion today. There are many other people on the right, but many people on the left that are the same way. There are hundreds of them, and they're placed in position to do that on purpose. Their job is to make money and to do what they're told. Otherwise, their platform will be taken from them.
The moment someone refuses to move their position in the face of concrete data, you know there's an external thing that is holding them in the position that they are in.
Bingo. Very, very well said. I think I'm going to go and watch the rest of that in my spare time. I'm not going to keep you all for too long with that. I found that to be incredible. Very, very incredible. Very incredible. Heck yeah. Yeah, man. Dang, I've been on for almost 2.5 hours. Look at me. I never stay on that long. And what's so crazy is I disagree with so many people that was at that Jubilee hearing. A lot of those people that he debated were stereotypical leftists. They get up there just trying to rage bait and they're saying things that don't make sense themselves. And, you know, they only talk about systemic racism and victimhood, but they never talk about what we can do already in ourselves that we're doing wrong Where's the nuance? Where's the middle ground? Right? Where are those large influencers? Where are those people at? Can somebody point me in the direction of those people? That's what I want to know. Yeah. Let me find out. Because like I said, I have reason to believe that Charlie Kirk may have been a Freemason. I don't have 100% proof of that, but I do believe that he was a Freemason. I do. Anyways, let's get some of these super chats, man. Thank you for the 750 joules. Let them cook. Jamming, thank you. Thank you. Mr. Lane, how you doing? Did you get settled into your new home? Can you explain to me what these joules mean? I still don't know. Shout out to Ellie as the new member. Heck yeah. Shout out to Jana. Thank you for the $50, Jana. Tatum and so many others sold his soul out of greed for money, which makes him still a slave for the government. Sad but true. I agree. This life is just a blip of time compared to eternity, and our souls are the most valuable thing we own. I myself could never. That is so well said. I'm gonna have to pin this. Gina, if you can remember to copy and paste this after the fact, I'll pin this in the comment section. This was so well said. I totally agree. Totally agree. This is just a blip in time. You can get caught up in thinking what, caught up in the flesh. We're not going to be here forever. And you're going to have to rethink. All of us are going to have to rethink many of our decisions. I'm a sinner just like everybody else, and I fall short of the glory of God. I'm not stating that from a position of moral authority, but you got to wonder, man. You got to wonder, bro. At what point do you just say, I can't sleep at night? I know what I'm doing is wrong. Yes, I tell some truth, but I know what I'm really doing. I know what my agenda is. Very strange. Thank you, Gina, for the $10. Actually, we're all still slaves. It's just more subtle these days. Yes, I agree. I believe a lot of us are mental slaves. Absolutely. There's a psychological chokehold on many of us. Thanks, Didi. You are the best. Prayers for you, yours, and all of us. Thank you. Which reminds me, a lot of you all have been asking about the Kobe Part 2. Kobe Bryant Sacrifice Chronicles Part 2. That will be coming in the next 2 days. I'll have a Jeffrey Epstein related video coming on YouTube. The Kobe Bryant Sacrifice Chronicles Part 2 video will be coming on Patreon. Link is in the description to the Patreon once again. That'll be coming in the next 2 days, if the Lord say the same. I meant to have that out last week, but remember, I'm coming back off vacation, and I had a bachelor's party this past weekend, so I've been super busy. All right, boom, boom. Thank you. I got to figure out what these mean, y'all. Thank you, The Real Busybody, for the $12. I wish we didn't have to factor the colors one wears as they are affiliated with something ominous. I wish we didn't have to factor the colors one wears as they are affiliated with. What do you mean by that? Are you saying like it's unfortunate that that's how it works, or are you just saying that you would like it if we just didn't call that out? Like, what do you mean by that? Because it's a real thing. Thank you. Floating hard. Not sure what that means. Thank you, Maria, for the $5 super chat. Can you play a quick video on the Kaniga Jenkins case? The video about Black Balloon is good and give you insight, please. I'm not going to play that here. Maybe in another video. It's not related to today's topic, and I've already went 2.5 hours. Maybe if I didn't go so long, I would do it. So maybe next time. Happy Pooh. Okay. Thank you. At the end, when you start reading comments. Yeah, maybe in the next one. Tater is bought and not allowed to go off script. Man, but you want to know what's interesting though, Gina, and everybody else was interesting to me. Which by the way, my mom's middle name is Regina. People like that, I want to run into them because the questions I'm going to have for them are going to be so pertinent, but so I think soul crushing, because it's not going to be about an agenda. It's not going to be a gotcha. I'm going to just ask him a human, a question on a humanity level. Like, okay, you hold a Black community accountable. Why is all your content built around that, but nobody else? Oh, I talk about the Democrats. Sure. You talk about the communities, it's always politically related. You talk about the Black community, you talk about you don't say it's all Black people, but you talk about the Black community. You don't talk about the white community, you talk about white liberals. You see the difference? Shout out to Sharon. Thank you for the $5. Thank you for covering this and exposing ex-Officer Tatum fulfilling the external benefits that he gets. Fulfilling the external benefits that he gets. That's what it is. Very well said. Yes, the earth is flat. Bring on Flat Earth Dave. I covered Flat Earth Dave before. Massive platform. He debated this guy by the name of Lord Jamar on comedians Godfrey's podcast like a year ago, maybe a little bit over a year ago. It was crazy. I got to figure out what these mean, y'all. Thank you, Marie, for the $20. Hate that he used Flat Earth as an example. I'm not gonna lie, I did too, because I have my thoughts about some things with the Earth. I have my thoughts. But what I also say is I'm not researched enough, I'm not informed enough, educated enough to take one position or the other. But I am not in a position at the same time to say that I don't. Because Flat Earth is biblical and true. Once eyes are open, you really can't unsee it. Much love, Brother Didi. Yeah, maybe we could do a video on that one day. Yeah. Very well said, because that's literally what I was thinking too. I was thinking like as far as like getting to the science of it and the studies, I don't want to sound ignorant and I don't want to be ignorant. But as a believer, there are other things that come with believing that the earth and space and planets and other galaxies. Interesting. That's what I'm going to say for now. Anyways, all right, y'all, man. I've been on live for far too long. My voice has left me. Y'all up in the comment section, give me your thoughts. Please hit the like button as a reminder. If you want to check out the merch store is in the description. We're going to be running a sale here pretty soon. I just got to get back with my team and get myself. I'm all discombobulated, you know. So there's that. And yeah, pray for everybody mentioned in this video, including Officer Tatum. All right. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and log out of here, man. And I'm going to catch you all in the next one. I'm Demetrius. I go by Didi. Until next time. Peace.